around Daytona. Are you expecting more aggression like we just saw?
On the last lap especially, but not as much as we've seen in the span of 3 laps. I think everyone was just saying, we have to go. It's 3 laps. Why not go for it? Now, you have to be smarter when you time it up. It should be interesting who works together here in the course of 20 laps.
It's all about the buddy system, and now we are officially green flag racing for what is the last chance qualifier. Remember, the top 5 from here will be getting into that main event, so all you have to do is be in that lead group of cars. Don't get wrecked out. Don't be at the back. It sounds so simple, but yet everyone out here is striving to do the exact same thing. It is currently Ian Humphries leading the way, accelerating on the bottom line of the racetrack, being pushed by Brandon Evans in the number 41 car. Then comes the outside lane. Austin Runkle, he lined up on the front row on that start. He slid back just a little bit, but he's getting help in the form of the number 27. That's Mason Dunn pushing.
Keep in mind, Runkle looks solid in the early going in course of 3 laps, but now it's a matter of feeling out the course of 20 laps. Who's going to be able to move you forward? Who's going to be someone you can trust? Who's somebody you can be confident about holding respective lines here? Because if you have someone that is bombing around like we're seeing here on the top line, you think through your mind, how am I going to give an air push to the back end of this truck? Do I go? Do I line this up later? Do I see what happens? There's so much feeling out when it comes to a situation like this over the course of 20 laps.
And with these trucks specifically, they actually create a pretty big hole behind them, so the drafting effect is quite large. And what you were just saying is, where is the stability where I can go up and actually make that push? And I don't see any stability from that outside lane whatsoever. That number 18 truck is just kind of all over the place, but a little bit of a moment here in the tri-oval. So, Justin, if you don't have these trucks lined up perfectly on that bump, it can definitely turn a truck around or make them loose. I also think that the tri-oval, huge danger area that people don't think about.
You can't push in either of those sections, whether it's the corners or the tri-oval, because if you push when you're essentially turning, it's so easy. And here we go!
Yeah, the 3 car just got turned on the back straightaway there. Have to see exactly who that was. I believe that's Vincent Cacciatore in that number 3 car. He had help from another car, but we stay green flag on the racetrack.
That's going to really sting for him, to say the very least, but there's a saying, you block, you pay. That time, not only was the outside essentially open, Kevin Carlisle, one of the SimCity racing machines, said, you know what, I'm going to take it 3 wide. And essentially, the 3 came up and turned himself across the snows.
It's exactly what happened there, and it's the super speedway tax. It's tough because you have to be aggressive, right? You want to keep working your way forward in terms of that track position, but at the same time, you have to be safe, and at 100, and I'm checking 190 miles an hour is what the trucks are doing right now as they enter into turn 3. Those reactions have to be crazy fast. If you think you are clear and you are not, oh, it is going to be a bad day.
That's an understatement, to say the very least. And to get back to the conversation about pushing, I argue it's not as simple as just slamming or pushing the truck in front of you. There's an aero bubble that we talk about so much when it comes to these trucks, where if you're able to just line it up perfectly in terms of how you have your throttle, but also how you line up the bumper, make sure it's square, you don't even need to make the contact. You just need to give some slight air push, like the outside line is doing right now. You slam draft, it's even slower than what they're doing up there to build up the momentum. If you don't time it up right, though, it can lead to a lot of chaos with how big these runs can be. And if you do try the slam draft too hard, that could also cause a spin around. And some calls over the radio just now. Some drivers behind Brandon Evans and company are saying, stop pushing.
It's interesting. You know, I think it's going to be to each driver's prerogative to approach the race how they want to. Now, if you're going to get on the radio and tell somebody else how to drive, You know, I think that's some free advice that you might want to keep to yourself. Now, I understand being a little nervous if you see a car kind of wandering around out there. However, when we're talking about that number 41 car, Brandon Evans, if you are unaware of who Brandon Evans is, he's one of the most consistent, one of the fastest here on Maconi Entertainment, Maconi SetupShop. So I think that I would put plenty trust in that driver right there, even though he might be wobbling around just a little bit.
I think a lot of conversation more so is for the mid-pack because, oh, as there goes one driver dropping back into the wall. That's John Mullers, who went all over the track and up to the wall.
Like you said, the 24, Mullers, John Mullers, and there was a little bit of a sketchy moment. I know you were watching it, Justin, as the 18 was also going by. I picked out a couple numbers here that are a little bit wobbly-woobly to keep an eye on. The number 18 back in the pack, definitely one of them. As we watch the number 24 here, this is the car that got pushed out wide, but you were mentioning that bubble draft pushing that outside line, and now we are officially side by side for 5 rows deep, Justin. Now they form up a 6th row. It's like a pace slap at 185 miles an hour.
About 13 drivers in this main pack already quickly approaching the halfway point. And essentially when it's like this, you just have to wait, maintain patience, and you also have to maintain your cool, because if you don't maintain that patience throughout the rest of the run, it's so easy to end up just destroying your race with one bad move, or better yet, destroying several other people's races here. But we'll say, keep an eye, especially I think on the 34, Sean Bounty. You're talking about some of the drivers' consistency. The 34 Bounty is amongst those who come from a series called Thunderclap, as well as from Good Vision Super Speedways. Guess who their points leader is? The 34. So he's amongst those really trying to expand out on the truck side, especially over the past few months in the midst of its offseason in the respective leagues. And he's considered one of its most consistent and calmest drivers in situations just like this.
You need to have a calm, level head if you want to go super speedway racing. It's really controlled aggression is the best way to put it. So you have to be patient with the cars moving around. You have to be willing to let some of those positions go, because it is all in the ebb and the flow. Who's your buddy out there who can provide those nice bump drafts? And Justin, you were talking about the difference in the pushes, the slam draft versus kind of using that bubble of air. It certainly seems like that outside lane, they have a little bit of a better top-end speed, which you get from the momentum around this place, but it also just seems like they can hook up better, and when they do hook up, they can push a little bit more efficiently.
And that's the key thing. Keep an eye on the inside line this time, because Evans is amongst those going for a lot of slams. When you slam somebody, it basically picks up your back tires, nearly spins you around. Yes, it can be efficient if you do it right, but it's also rare that you do that right when you essentially jack up the back end of a truck like that. Compare that to the outside where you just wait for the corner exit, give a small tap and push. You see how much more efficient it is when you do it right down the straightaways.
And look at that. This is an example right here. They were almost a full truck length behind exiting turn number 2. By the time they entered turn number 3, that outside lane, and oh, we got contact 3 wide here for the lead, and more contact. Brandon Evans almost gets turned around. Oh, we haven't had a wreck yet. Oh, now the 18 definitely involves multiple trucks. Problems, I see 7 trucks involved. Our first yellow flag of the night.
They wrecked for a good half a straightaway there, to say the very least. Then it all started, remember the timing we just talked about, timing it up for corner exits? Well, Jason Allen timed it up just a second too early. It's quite simple as that, and that ended up collecting a good half, if not 3/4 of the field. Thankfully, there's a faster pair, because now this really shakes it up at midway.
I think one of the trucks involved with that was Boundy, the driver you were mentioning, but this was the earlier incident that we saw in the 3-lap shootout. Really what happened here on this caution, it all started with Brandon Evans just kind of 3 wide over there. I don't think that Brandon Evans made any bad moves per se, but that's just kind of where it all got bejumbled up. And then I thought Brandon Evans wrecked about 3 times, like you were saying,
Yeah.
but ultimately it was the number 18 that involved with about 5 or 6 cars.
I honestly don't consider it the fault of Evans as the initial trigger there. I consider it.
I love it when people say that something's impossible. I see that as a challenge.
So again, what we've seen from the 71 of Allen, try to push Cook, try to check up for it, and went down the racetrack all at the same time. A slight bit up was Humphries we see. And that was enough to essentially trigger what you were talking about with the 3 wide there, because essentially you have the rest of the drivers coming in behind, like Austin Runkel and several others, that have the option of either you check up hard or you try and just send it. And in the case of what we've seen, send it on the outside was where that 3 wide you were talking about really came in.
Yeah, no, you picked that apart perfectly. You were right. It definitely started with that bad push up front. Then it involved Evans. Then it involved everybody else. So I think that these top 5 drivers, Corey Koch, Jason Allen, Ian Humphries, Brandon Evans, Kenneth Bartholomew, they are all breathing a huge sigh of relief because they just saw that super speedway, Daytona, go up and grab quite a few competitors, and the laps are starting to wind down. We're past halfway in this 20-lap last chance qualifier, so if you were involved in something like that, yes, there is a fast repair to save you, but you got to work your way through the draft pack at that point, and that's never what you want to do on a limited time run.
Yeah, especially when you know you need the top 5, so why risk going over aggressive there? Because you'll have time potentially to regroup. Now, the key thing again is make sure you're in the lead pack, but now essentially, as most of the field who was involved in that one takes the faster pair here, I expect to go to what we've seen in the 3-lap shootout, quote unquote. Get crazy, get wild, get very busy here to say the very least. Expecting this to get ready for the restart here.
I see the number 3 truck. Now, Vincent involved in an earlier incident as well as that prior race incident. He is getting his lap back right now. So once that number 3 truck comes back around, catches up back with the field, it looks like we'll have 15 trucks all on the racetrack at the same time as we get some good shots from Raymond inside of his sim rig, just kind of relaxing right now, getting ready for that. You know what? I'm going to have to kind of scratch my brain here. What was the NASCAR driver that loved having the cigarette between the yellow flags there, and then he would always flick it out the window? Dick Trickle. That's exactly what Raymond Hanneman is channeling right now, Justin.
Oh, and just heard of a disqualification over the radio. Austin Runkel is out of the race.
Interesting to see exactly.
I think it was because of what happened, maybe. I'm not. I think it has something to do with the incident.
We will follow up exactly what happened to that number 18 truck. Justin, like you picked it apart. Now, we are not race control. We don't make these decisions. We just kind of get to sit up here and talk about them. We are not the important ones that are doing the driving or handing down those penalties. But didn't look like there was anything malicious, per se, from the 18 truck. I know that he was a little bit wobbly, kind of within the draft pack, and it looks like I am getting word disqualification for pulling back on the track. So just kind of a little bit of foul play going on with the 18 truck is from what I've been given in terms of the information.
It was something after the caution waved is the only thing we can really say on that regard. So it's the first DQ of the race, and it looks like we're looking towards a 6-lap shootout once this race gets underway. Keep in mind, Cook, Allen, Humphries, Brendan Evans, and interesting enough, Bartholomew are in the transfer spots. That 5th place on back is about to get extremely crazy, especially when you have the drivers like Bounty, when you have drivers such as Allen and a couple others that are looking to get in those spots, and several who do have significant damage here.
And real fast, because you have more time in the sim on these oval events than I do. We're about to go green, but these trucks, they take time to get up to speed. How do you not slam draft somebody in these acceleration laps?
Well, quite simply, you hope that the person in front of you times up the restart, because if it's done wrong on the top especially, because keep in mind, it goes off the control car when that green flag trigger comes up once they start accelerating in the restart box. You better hope that there is a massive checkup. Now, keep in mind to make sure you don't slam draft off the jump. It's not as easy to slam draft when you have everyone's so close going up to the gears. It's when the back straightaway comes into play when we see that major difference.
Will we see another yellow flag, or will we get 5 competitors advancing to tonight's main event? We are about to find out. Green flag in the air once again. It is all Jason Allen getting pushed along the top side from Brandon Evans. They instantly clear Corey Cook down below. Actually, Brandon Evans getting hung out to dry now on the top side. He's got to find a buddy. It looks like the 53 is now going to come up and help push there. It's all still coming down to this acceleration phase. Only 175 miles an hour, still getting there.
Top 4 basically Maconi pack, whether on the factory team or whether amongst those who work through the setup side. Now it's the matter though of who gets that 5th spot to break that up, or better yet, who has a shot to battle for the win. Already drivers like Bounty look hungry. Brian Zabowski, wouldn't be surprised to see him shuffle with Bounty the way things are lining up here. That top line's got a lot of drivers coming up, 5 to go.
5 laps remaining in the last chance qualifier. Let's see who's going to advance their way through. It is side by side, 2 by 2 by 2, all the way throughout the entire 14-car field right now. Jason Allen currently leading the way on that yellow line. I don't think that he is going to separate off of that low line whatsoever. That's where he is going to put his truck for the rest of tonight.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised to see him not move as long as it doesn't cost him too many spots. He's right where he needs to be, Allen is right now. He's lucky to still be up front after the contact, yes. But he's been amongst those have proven he's comfortable with the draft. Now keep an eye though on that top. Humphries has been working with Evans this whole time. It might go down towards Evans or Allen for this win the way it's shaping up here.
And remember, it's really been Brandon Evans that's been doing the pushing. He hasn't been the one that's on the receiving end, so it's a little bit different. And now we're starting to get these 2 truck tandems. It is Jason Allen, Corey Cook down on that low side, Brandon Evans and Ian Humphrey on the top side. And just like we saw earlier, that top lane, a little bit more momentum, a little bit more top speed down the straightaways. But here in turns 3 and 4, you see that low lane really start to inch its way forward. Brandon Evans doing everything that he can in that red truck, try to squeeze down to that low lane, get whatever side draft he can, try to steal away the lead, but it's still Jason Allen out front starting lap 18 of 23 laps remaining.
Not liking what I'm seeing though from Mason Dunn, because he's trying to push the pusher. When you have a 3-truck grouping, that's not a good recipe, because with the Cup car, you can do a 3-car draft tandem, because that's what is honestly the preference. When you try and push the push with the truck, you spin somebody. Speaking of spins, there goes one.
Yeah, I see. Now we got multiple trucks involved a little bit further back. I think that's pretty much from 8th place on down, and it will bring out a yellow flag. We're going to have a green-white checker potentially to settle this last chance qualifier.
That's absolutely huge. To say the very least, expect a crazy finish. But quite simply, I know there's a lot of discussion from some of the drivers over holding lines, but essentially you have to go for it, and I think Gordon Splain tried to go for it in a hold that was 2.5 lanes wide. Seen lane open middle. Problem is, driver to the inside, John Mallertz tried to shut the door with someone already there.
And this was definitely further back in the field. I want to say probably 9th place or so. So just kind of scrapping it out. All these drivers were trying to kind of reach up there for that top 5 advancement spot, but they were really scrapping it out in kind of what I call the dirty end of the field. And trust me, folks, when you think the racing is hardest at the front, you actually look in the middle of the pack. That's where all the dirty areas, that's where all the racers are kind of fighting for every single inch of it. It can get really messy and really busy back there in that area.
At the same time, though, the argument is, for Gordon Splain, he was going for it. And do you blame him for going for it? Do you want to be in 9th or 10th or 11th with 2 laps to go, let alone a lap to go? The answer is obviously no.
When we said we'd make the skies bluer, some said keep dreaming. So we did, lowering emissions on the road to zero. Now, we're working on an EV that has wings. And someday, we'll turn your old Honda into your brand new Honda. Because we are a company of dreamers, setting out to be carbon neutral by 2050. So, no matter where we go, we're gonna keep dreaming.
This season, make the holidays pop. Because the best gifts make the perfect moments. Start shopping at StockX.com.
It's very unlikely you get up there. Gordon Splain, he had to go for it. Gordon Splain should say.
I agree. And I think that if you aren't trying to get up there, you're not really here for the right reasons, right? We're all here to race. It's just a management of that risk versus reward. Is that risk and that move going to bring out a yellow flag, going to wreck you? Can you make it cleanly? And of course, it's not always up to you completely. You have to trust all of your fellow racers, all of the competitors out there on the racetrack, and that move that is perfect in your head, it might come to a crashing end. And it could not be your fault at all. But one thing here is for sure, green-white checkered attempt number 1. We do have 3 attempts here to settle this thing tonight. Basically, this is overtime. We are already on lap 20, so hopefully these trucks have enough fuel in them. They are a fixed setup, so they shouldn't be able to take any of the fuel out. They should be able to make it just fine. However, what we're going to do is we're going to take the green flag, come racing by the white flag the next time by, and if we make it to the white flag, then the next flag will settle that race victory. And being that we have 100 laps still to go here, I would expect that these guys probably want to get to racing.
And honestly, I think if you're amongst the top 2 spots, if not top 3, you're fairly comfortable. But if you're even in 3rd, especially in 4th or 5th, I think you're absolutely at risk here because there's no way that it stays the same top 5 by the check flag here. Because we already have made it clear with what's been noted here. Drivers are not afraid to take a 3 wide now. You have to go 3 wide, essentially, if you want to try and make up the ground. So a lot of these drivers are going to find out who their true friends are. And a lot of these drivers are just going to try and ride along and figure out the right line to make sure they advance by the end of that checker flag here. Brian Sabelski is going to be in the most pressure-filled spot on this restart, though. Yeah, on the bubble. I don't know if that's going to happen here with everybody except for one still having a shot.
Well, and let's talk about that position, that bubble position. Because if you're in 5th, that means you're that first car that is left out of that tandem draft, right? And if you're not in that tandem draft, you were mentioning how dangerous that really is to be that third car pushing that two-car tandem. It can really cause a lot of problems. So if you are Brian Sabelski in that fifth place position, how do you approach this? Do you get up there and really start pushing? Do you kind of move defensive with the other cars on the racetrack? It'll be really, really interesting to see how all of these drivers are going to play this green-white checker.
Honestly, based on what we've seen on the last restart, I think he needs to get up to the top immediately. You can't just stay on the bottom here, because if you're on the bottom, corner exit, down on the final lap, you're likely getting passed by that top line because of how quick the middle line is down the straightaways. So expect Sabelski to try and find a way to shuffle up top and fast. If he gets pinched, it's all over the place for fifth on back.
As we saw from our little shrimp cocktail appetizer earlier, on the back straightaway, this can turn into just, a two-truck race instantly if the big one happens after the white flag. So, going to have to kind of be patient if we even make it there. The pace car is in turn number 3 right now. Brandon Evans, he is that red and black truck on the bottom lane. Jason Allen, that is the black and neon yellow truck on the top lane. Those are your top 2. You're about to go green flag racing once again. The pace car is officially off of the racetrack. Barney waiting patiently as the drivers enter the restart zone, and a huge jump for that number 41 truck of Brandon Evans. Is it too big of a jump? He doesn't have anybody out there to help push him. Thankfully, all these trucks are still getting up to speed, but watch out for Jason Cook. He's got a huge head of steam.
Able to quickly gather up. That was a big jump. Yes, it could have went very bad very quickly. There's that top 4 settled in. There's the worry, though, for the 85. Sabelski already pinched. Here comes Sean Bounty in the transfer.
And watch out for that 34, like you were saying. He is just lined up in the draft. And now we see a car move down to the bottom. That was Ian Humphrey. Now, I know it says 53 on the side, but it's the number 7 on timing and scoring. So right now, your transfer spot, the number 34 of Sean Bounty right now. He is in that outside lane, but in the mirror right now, the rest of the pack, 3 wide and closing. We will get the white flag. The next flag settles it.
No one can get gathered up in time, it looks like right now. No one's working together to try and get alongside for fifth. It's Humphries and Bounty in those bubble positions right now. Doesn't look like anybody's been able to get the momentum lined up. Sabelski might see a move, though. He's already clear to be able to go to the middle if he wants.
Your 6th place car, Sabelski, on the bottom lane. He actually threw a big block, and now it's going to actually be Mason Dunn, the white 27 truck on the top lane. Can he go and steal it away from Ian Humphries? It is all Jason Allen out front. Corey Cook giving chase. Brandon Evans on the bottom lane, but who is in that 5th place position? Who is going to transfer in? It's going to be 3 wide at the line. Jason Allen wins it. And I'm seeing, is it Ian Humphries in the 54? Is that who went by?
Yes, it is. It looks like he's the final starter tonight.
Awesome stuff. That was 3 wide for the finish here of the last chance qualifier. Holy smokes, folks. We're going to get your results right here on the screen. Ultimately, it was Jason Allen who won the last chance qualifier. Top 5 that are going to advance are Corey Cook, Brandon Evans, Sean Boundy, and Ian Humphries. That is in that 5th place transfer spot. Look at how close it was. 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Mason Dunn just barely losing out. The rest of the field, Brian Sabelski, Raymond Hanneman, Kevin Carlisle, and the rest of the names here on the screen, unfortunately, will have to pack it up. Join in watching the broadcast here and helping donate money for this amazing